We know that the universe of Star Trek is very different to our own. Well, it's at least far more explored than our own. But if you watch a lot of Star Trek, you may have heard about the universe split into quadrants: Alpha, Beta, Gamma, and Delta. Well, what do these mean? What do they contain? In today's video, I hope to easily explain the Star Trek universe to you. Let's get into it. So to understand the universe, we have to start at the beginning. Of course, it all started with a bang. And then the universe burst from a high density state into pretty much infinite space, billions of light years in diameter. Of course, stars and planets formed, and then chemical reactions began to trigger the first stirrings of life. Then, over billions of years, countless different species of plants and animals began to evolve independently across the universe. Some began to develop self-awareness and intelligence, and they even began to wonder what existed beyond what they knew. They started to develop societies, tools, and eventually the means of travel. This would in time develop into a capability of travel beyond their own planets. The Milky Way is actually the galaxy that most known species call their home. It is this area of space that is divided into 4 quadrants: Alpha, Beta, Gamma, and Delta. Those 4 areas spread out from the galactic core and are home to many different species, some that are capable of warp speed space travel. Now, in the 22nd century, and reaching all the way into the 24th century and even beyond, humans from Earth sought out like-minded civilizations across the Alpha and Beta quadrants. They would eventually form the United Federation of Planets, which would have a shared goal of exploring the universe. There are literally hundreds of species that make up the Federation in the 21st century, and then there are many more, such as Klingons, that simply coexist alongside it. However, there are some species, for example the Romulans, that are, for the most part, against the Federation. So later on in the 24th century, the Federation sent ships out to explore the Gamma and Delta quadrants. The exploratory arm of the Federation, known as Starfleet, discovered many new allies and enemies in these quadrants, but more importantly, the limits of knowledge were expanded. So, with that introduction out of the way, let's look specifically at the quadrants themselves. So just outside of the area that Earth can be found, the Alpha Quadrant was the first area of the galaxy to be explored by humans outside their own solar system. There are many Federation planets located in Alpha. Cardassia Prime is also a planet that was once an opposing force to the Federation. This quadrant is also home to some very peculiar spatial anomalies. Probably the most significant of these is a wormhole. It works as an instant passageway to the Gamma Quadrant. In 2369, it was determined that this wormhole was stable, and the Federation moved Deep Space Nine nearer to the opening to monitor it and to allow passage through it. Though the UFP is mainly considered to be the political power in the Alpha Quadrant, it also lays claim to a number of planets in the Beta Quadrant, as Earth essentially sits right on the theoretical dividing line between A and B. Some even consider Beta to be an even more important part of the galaxy, as it's home to some very significant civilizations. For example, 2 of the founding planets of the UFP, Vulcan and Andoria. Without these 2 planets, the United Federation of Planets would never have been created. The majority of the missions for the original Enterprise NX-01 was actually in the Beta Quadrant. The other 2 hugely notable powers within this quadrant are the Klingon Empire and the Romulan Star Empire. It was actually the war between the humans and the Romulans in the 22nd century that led to the foundation of the Federation. Another species that can be found in this quadrant, which definitely deserves a mention, is the lizard race, the Gorn. The Gamma Quadrant. This area was actually explored quite early on via a probe, but it wasn't until 200 years later that a manned vessel could get there via the wormhole in Alpha that it was actually able to be explored properly. It still remains largely unexplored, but a vast array of species have been encountered. The Dominion is the chief political federation. They are similar to the Federation and are made up of several different species. They are led by shape-shifting beings known as the Founders. They are a xenophobic race that waged war on the Federation in 2373, bringing devastation to many planets in the Alpha region. Finally then, we have the Delta Quadrant. The Delta Quadrant is very difficult for Federation ships to reach. The sheer distance combined with having to navigate through the galactic core made it quite the challenge to explore. It would take about 30 years to get a Starfleet vessel there. However, in 2371, when alien technology sent the USS Voyager and another ship 70,000 light years away from Sector 1, they needed to head back to the Alpha Quadrant, and of course, on their journey home, they got to explore the region in detail. Even before this event, the Federation had known that the Delta Quadrant was home to the Borg Collective. Thousands of star systems had been assimilated into the Borg as a collective of cybernetic beings. The first main contact with the Borg and this area was when the Enterprise D was flung into the Delta Quadrant by the omnipotent being known as Q. The Voyager crew did get to meet with some diverse species. In fact, a Talaxian and an Acampa even joined the crew. There is of course far more to explore and explain about the Star Trek universe and these quadrants, including the galactic barriers that seem to surround the core, and way more things, but those are perhaps a topic for another video. The purpose of this video is to try and give you an introduction to the universe, to help you understand how it is laid out, what is where and who is when and what not. Hopefully I've accomplished that and you leave here understanding at least a little better. That's it from me today, my friends. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a great day, live long and prosper, and I will see you next time on Federation Outpost 111.